Hello and welcome to Footy Classified. What a big week it has been in football. In fact, what a big couple of hours it's been in football. We've got a massive story that we're going to lead with tonight, with a grenade being thrown into the future of the Tasmanian licence. We'll get to that live in Tasmania in a few moments' time. Let's welcome Tom Morris, let's welcome Rory and Jimmy. We'll get straight into it. That's enough hellos. We've got plenty to get to, okay? We'll get you in due course, okay? Let's go, because we're going to go down to Tasmania. Our reporter, Brent Costelloe, from 9 Win News is on the spot, and Brent has broken a story tonight that has significant ramifications for the political system in Tasmania and clearly the knock-on effect to the new licence of AFL Football Club down there. Brent, welcome tonight, mate. We appreciate you coming on the show. Tell us what's going on down there, because the Premier could get rolled overnight.
Massive story, Eddie, as you said. We haven't seen anything like this for a while, and I've got a comment here from a political staffer tonight. He says this sets off one of the messiest series of events we've ever seen, because nobody knows how it's going to end. Basically, what's happened today is the State Opposition Leader, Dean Winter, has put forward a no-confidence motion in the Premier, Jeremy Rockliff, on the floor of State Parliament. That hasn't been debated yet. He's waiting to make sure he's got the numbers. We'll find that out tomorrow morning when the Greens decide if they're going to support the motion or not. And then it could be debated as soon as tomorrow morning in State Parliament. And that could mean that if it does get through, Jeremy Rockliff will no longer be the Premier. We'll have to find a new Premier, or we might have to go to an election. So there's lots of things on the table, a lot of uncertainty, but that's currently where it sits tonight. OK,
Brent, that's great for Tasmanian politics, but we're interested in the AFL, OK? So thank you for setting that up. And the question now is, the ALP are supportive of the 19th licence in Tasmania and the stadium down there in Hobart. But does this become, if it has to have another election, does it become another referendum basically on the 19th licence, and it could get rolled?
Spot on, Eddie, absolutely. We sort of said it was a referendum the last election, which, to be fair, was only 12 months ago. That's how short a time it's been since we went to the polls here in Tasmania. So what does it mean for the stadium? Well, it just creates more uncertainty, and that's the last thing that the stadium needs, is uncertainty, because we know it's hanging by a thread at the moment. As it stands, it's meant to be debated in the Parliament in the coming weeks, in the lower house and the upper house. But if we go to another election, that just creates more delays around the stadium, creates more uncertainty, as I said. The Premier mightn't be there. He's been the #1 supporter of this stadium, so it could be a new leader. That new leader might need to seek confidence and supply from other parliamentarians, so it's one big giant mess.
Brent, if you could break it down, if this does happen tomorrow, either a new leader or a referendum via an election, what are the chances this team falls over entirely?
Oh, look, Tommy, I've always said I can't see this falling over. There's just so much support for it. There is a lot of noise and a lot of negative noise, but I think the positive noise outweighs the negative noise. Saying that, Brendan Gale was pretty open about it the other day. He said we're all out of jobs if this stadium doesn't happen. I think people think if the stadium falls over that we'll still be able to have a team in the competition. It's just not going to happen. So we're back to the drawing board, back to a whole new licence agreement, etc. So, I guess it's in real danger of falling over, potentially.
And so, Brent, do you think the average man in the street, or man or woman in the street, still wants this stadium or still wants this team, or is this a change in feeling down in Tasmania?
No, I do, James, and as I said, there's still a lot of negative noise, but I feel like the pro people are starting to come out of their shell a bit. Now they know this is crunch time, and as I said, we're expecting to debate this on the floor of Parliament in the coming weeks. So that started to build nicely, that positivity around it now. But this has thrown one giant big spanner in the works tonight. And the interesting thing is, Eddie mentioned it before, Labor, who are putting this motion forward, are pro-stadium. They weren't initially. They've changed their position. They are now pro-stadium. But the support they need tomorrow is from the people that are against the stadium. So it's all a really interesting and bizarre situation.
Well, as Paul Keating said, in the race of life, always back self-interest, and political self-interest comes before anything. Let's have a listen to what Andrew Dillon had to say today, not knowing this was in play, but this is what he had to say about the Tasmanian licence.
Well, I think we've been really clear that we've got a licence for the Tassie Devils that is... There's a number of conditions in it, but one of those conditions that's really clear is we have a stadium with a capacity of 23,000 with a roof at Macquarie Point. If that doesn't happen, well, then the licence remains conditional.
OK, and Brendan Gale, as Brent mentioned a few moments ago, had this to say last week in a launch of the Tasmanian team here in Melbourne.
So what happens if it doesn't go through?
We're out of a job, Zan. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but there's a risk. I guess there's a view down there that we'll have an opportunity to renegotiate, and our response to that is I wouldn't be running that risk.
And Brent, just before we come back to you, I want to just roll some vision in a few seconds' time, because Senator Jackie Lambie has been pushing behind the scenes to get this relocated to Launceston, and she believes that a refurbishment of York Park, and I'll show you the vision of the type of roof you can put on at Frankfurt Stadium at the moment. If we can roll the videotape on that, please. Have a look at this. This is what she's talking about, that this is the type of thing that is now happening around the world. So this was a reconditioned stadium. You can see the four-sided matrix screen there, and then out comes a membrane-type roof. Now, that would cost you the best part of 190 million, but it's a fair way short of the 200 million. So there's people who are saying Launceston's the football state, that Hobart is the cricket state, Launceston is the football city, and that the Hobart team should be moved down there. There's people all over the place. So once again, it just becomes very messy, as you said, Brent.
It does, Eddie. Yeah, I think everyone's sort of come to the realisation now that it has to be in Hobart, but you still have that little bit of parochialism, I guess. But you know full well that we need a stadium that works for this team. I think people think we can just go to Bellerive Oval or UTAS Stadium in Launceston and this team can be successful. It's just not the case. It needs this brand new multi-purpose stadium to make the club profitable and strong well into the future.
Hey Brent, it's Rory here. I've got limited knowledge on this, but what I have heard wasn't there a fully funded alternate site right next to it at Macquarie Point there that had a bit of backing too?
Yeah, there has been, Rory. MAC 2.0, they were calling it there for a while, and there was a fair bit of support for that, but the government and the AFL were always determined to build it at Macquarie Point, which is probably only a couple of hundred metres down the road, a little bit further, but it's right on the point. It's right next to the waterfront and not too far from Salamanca. So personally, I believe it's an unbelievable spot. And we've seen what's happened in Adelaide. We've seen what's happened in Perth. We could have the same thing in Hobart if we can all just come to the party and agree upon it.
And there's another place that's pretty good too, Brent, called the MCG, which is, and I say that only because it's been there so long that people forget that is the heartbeat of Melbourne and Victoria, in a lot of ways Australia and internationally now more and more, and that's the significance to underline your point. Brent Costelloe, thanks very much for breaking the story, mate, first of all, and coming on Footy Classified and explaining the ramifications for the AFL. We really appreciate you being on our show.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brent Costelloe from 9 Win. Sports report is also down there on the radio on SEN.
Yes, Tim Payne on SEN.
Does a great job. So good on you,
Eddie,
Brent. And so more drama. That's the drama.
Can we have a look at that Frankfurt Stadium again? Can we just have a look at that? I just want to have a look at it again because that look at it unfold.
So this is the sort of...
This looks like the Lilo I took camping last week. Look at it unfold. It's unbelievable.
You probably have a $190 million Lilo.
The ball would hit that, wouldn't that?
No,
that's a Turek Lilo.
The ball would hit that, he says.
Well, you kick it high.
It's an angle shooting up, and obviously lift the height up to do it. And that's sort of the thing that also, when I've mentioned in the past about possibly having a roof at the MCG, we've already got those things to try and stop the seagulls coming in. You can do these things. The technology that is in play in the engineering now makes it completely different to when we used to hammer the roof on down at Marvel, etc., etc. So these are the things that need to be looked at. And not just down in Tasmania, but here. But
that's a huge story. Yeah. That's got ramifications all the way back to the AFL.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I spoke to Andrew Dillon tonight, and he's right. Okay, his first reaction was ALP staunch with the Libs down there. But as we said, now the Greens are getting involved, and good luck if they're forming a coalition to roll the Premier. Well, they'll want their pound of flesh as well.
And that's why it's a question about the average person in the street. I mean, the average person in the street seems like they want it, and the Parliament should be representative of what the other people want.
OK, let's move on now. And Tom Morris broke an exclusive story tonight on 9 News. It's about Channel 7, our opposition show, but that's got nothing to do with it. There's no square up or being smart alecks about it. This is a legitimate story that has come from the umpires, who are absolutely filthy with the report 3 weeks ago. Tom, what is going on? Just the facts.
Yeah, that's right. These are the facts. So I can tell you tonight that the 4 umpires involved in the Lachie Schultz debacle 3 weeks ago, Simon Meredith, Craig Fleer, Justin Power and Martin Rogers, are considering taking legal action against Kane Cornes, Dale Thomas and Luke Hodge for comments that they made on the agenda setters on May 13. Now, for legal reasons, we're not going to publish the comments, which followed Lachie Schultz's concussion on May the 8th. But what we can do is show you a statement from Rob Kerr, who's the AFL Umpires Association CEO. And in part, he says, being falsely accused of lying and misleading the AFL goes beyond simply questioning the management of the actual incident. Public commentary casts aspersions on an individual integrity and professional competence, particularly when that is core to the role they perform. It harms the personal and professional standing, and it's reasonable to consider how that can be rectified. So that's where we're at tonight, Ed.
OK, so we know that the AFL apologised for putting out misleading information. That came subsequently after the agenda setters show, so that gives them some sort of situation. However, the umpires are saying, no, you made unfounded and unchecked allegations, and that's why they're going after them.
That's exactly what's happening. Well, no, they're not going after them yet. They're just considering their legal options. Yeah, which is a really important distinction to make. But nothing's out of the question. And as Rob Kerr said then, integrity for umpires is of the highest importance, which is why they're considering this.
You could say the umpire strikes back.
You could say that.
Now, can I just say that going back to the 70s, umpire Ian Robertson, who was the great umpire in the 70s and early 80s, sued Alf Brown, the chief football writer of the Herald in those days, of which the Alf Brown Trophy, the #1 football award in journalism, is named after the great Alf Brown, and won because he believed that Alf Brown impugned his integrity in a match report after a game. And so it's not unheard of for the umpires to go hard and win.
Didn't Scott McLaren attempt to sue you? Heard he? Seriously?
There was threats. There was talk about it. Yeah, but I had to give a very obviously an apology, which was well deserved. I should have given the apology for what I said about Scott. But that was you've got to be very careful what you say about umpires. Do a great job, and you just got to be careful.
I mean, you'd like to hope that might be the way it ends up.
Yeah,
we don't end up in courts because there's enough to and fro.
I would imagine if they apologise, the umpires would be happy with that.
Settled?
I don't know what the outcome would be, but I think an apology would go a long way
let it play out. But I suppose that what helps Channel 7 is not many people saw it. So
he was never going to wait long. He wasn't going to wait long.
He said no jabs.
One on the way through. Jamarra Ugle-Hagan is back.
Yes.
Or is he?
Well, this is good news. So he put this up on his own social media today. He's been on the Gold Coast receiving treatment, and then he's been in Byron Bay. And my understanding is he's back on the Gold Coast now, Rory. This is good to see. The Western Bulldogs weighing up what they do next with him. Now, my understanding is that Jamarra has told people close to him he would like to play for the Sydney Swans next year in a perfect world. Whether that takes place or not, whether the Swans are keen, I'm not sure. The Dogs would have to trade him because, of course, he's contracted. But that is good to see, Sloaney.
It is good.
And again, one thing that we know there is play football, mate, don't box.
No. Well, exactly.
Wide open.
I can't talk.
It's great to see. It's great he feels comfortable enough sharing that with us all too on social media. And he did actually write back on one of the comments that he's coming. And to your point too, he wants to play for Sydney Swans. So that's step one right there.
Okay.
I'd like to see him training with his football team.
Well, step two, that's exactly right. If I'm a club and I'm serious about picking this guy up, I need to see him training for a footy club, and he needs to be too, because you cannot do training like that on your own. You need to touch some footies, you need to be involved, surrounded by the best people. Footy clubs are great environments to go through hardship in, and I think he needs to reintegrate with Western Bulldogs later part of this year if he's serious about going to Sydney Swans.
Do you want to see him play a game?
I want to see him
just
training. Just training at the
and commit to a big block of training. I can't imagine any club would look at that and say that's enough for us to think he's draftable. I mean, it's the first step, but it's a long way from being anywhere near what a football team is.
Belinda and I love that run up. We go for a run every time. Yeah, she beats me up to the top of the light, Brian, and you do that every now and then too, don't you?
Can we roll it again just as we finish this? But let's be honest, it's an edit that's been put together. It's been shot by somebody. They're nice tight cuts of a couple of things. I mean, I could get up and do that at the moment. It look like running a marathon.
I've seen you box. You're a bit better than that too.
Exactly.
You can show people what you want them to see.
Can we see the vision if we can roll that up, guys?
Yeah.
So
you're suspect on that, Ed?
No, I think it's great that it's there. You know what it is? It's saying, right, I'm getting my mind right. I don't think it went over that well with a few of the Western Bulldogs teammates today who are preparing for the game tomorrow. I mean, they're tight edits. I mean, there's nothing in that says that he's
It's not really about the Western Bulldogs.
It's better than seeing him in some of the other social posts he's been in.
By a long way.
It's a start, but it's a long way from a club going, he's ready to play football.
Has to reintegrate into the AFL system if he's serious about playing that.
But we're all saying, yep, and the footy world says, Jamarra, come on, buddy, let's get back into it. We want you to play.
We want to make sure that we've got a structure that allows the AFL to continue the momentum we've got into the future, and Laura now is in a role, and what we have now with Greg coming in looking after the football performance, Laura continuing to run football operations. Football is at the core of what we do. 2 members of my executive team with responsibilities for football is what sets the AFL up for the future.
Yes, indeed. We've seen over the last couple of weeks the shifting in the AFL headquarters, and I think it starts with Pearce's 3-week suspension being annulled at the tribunal. We'll come to that in a few moments' time. Can I just add to that, though? Laura Kane's copped a fair whack over the last week and...
last 18 months, really.
But the last week when people have gone to it. Now, I'll say this publicly, right? I would hire Laura Kane to any position in my organisation, both in and out of football. She's a very, very, very accomplished person. She was put into a position without the expertise or the background, but at a time when that whole football world changed, because the emphasis on the rules in relation to possible litigation for concussion meant that so many things just really aggravated everyone in football and you couldn't get a line of sight. Now, coming back to that, I think we're going to go through it in a few moments' time, but certainly what we've been able to see in recent times was Pearce got off.
Yep.
We saw Lloyd Meek on the weekend. Now, that was 3 weeks all day, 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, because suddenly we went to
football.
You can get a concussion in a football incident, and it is a ballistic, hard contact sport. What we need to do is mitigate the rules so we don't have any head slams, etc., and find that happy medium where it was going all one way, and those with law degrees probably had too much say. And that's not a knock. We needed that, but now we need to find it. And I think Greg Swan is exactly the person that they needed to have to do so.
And I get the feeling that Andrew Dillon's just said, enough's enough, I want to take control. This is the AFL that I run, I want to do it my way, and these are the people I want. I change the structure. I don't know how much the Commission's had involved, but it's a strong decision by Andrew Dillon to put these people involved, get football people involved, and I think everyone in the whole system has applauded it. Let's see how he goes in the next appointment. Is a very important one as well, Tom.
Yes, and the next appointment is the COO position, and everyone's saying it's Tom Harley's. It is down to 2. It's Tom Harley and Amit Baines, who's the Western Bulldogs chief executive. Now, Tom Harley either one would be fantastic. Tom Harley, the attraction of this is that he would then become the heir apparent eventually, not that Andrew Dillon's setting up to leave after 1 year in the job.
You get a runway though, don't you?
You get a runway, but I would also argue that if he stayed in Sydney, and this is the issue that's going to come up, and we'll put the board up on this. This is and you guys are going to have a good look in Sydney on ground at the moment, but John Longmire, one of the most experienced and most successful coaches, has left in the last 6 months. Charlie Gardner has gone to Collingwood in that stage. Andrew Pridham, who has been... There's no one's fought harder for his club than Andrew Pridham, and he's a fearful warrior up there. He and I have had plenty of hand-to-hand combat over the journey. He fights for his position, and he's been mentioned in dispatch. Well, more than that, Caroline Wilson and Michael Warner are running his campaign to be the chair of the AFL. Now, if that happens and Tom Harley goes, it makes it very interesting. Now, I will say this. I don't know if the Victorian clubs and even the South Australian and West Australians will want to see Tom Harley from Sydney. We know he's from South Australia originally, but he's at the Sydney situation.
Long premiership captain as well.
Yeah, I know that, but at the moment he's been running the Sydney Swans, and Swanee, who's been, he's a staunch Victorian, but comes down. I think both of those guys will do a fantastic job. So first of all, but whether or not that would lead to clubs wanting to have Andrew Pridham in then as the chair makes it, one, interesting, but two, we have to make sure that we don't decimate those two important sides. Brisbane, now they're okay. They've put in Sam Graham, who has been groomed for those positions, and he'll fit in nicely. But the Swans have got a bit of drama at the moment for the first time in years, and I just wonder whether or not Andrew Pridham and even Tom Harley would be better sitting there. He'll get the job if he says yes.
Yeah.
Right?
The worry for Sydney is that Sydney, and you'll get upset over this, Sydney's the most important team in the competition, not because of the biggest team, not because of the most supporters, but if Sydney doesn't work, if Sydney aren't successful in that tough market, the whole game in Sydney revolves around Sydney being successful pretty much, and if they're not, if they're weak, it's a poor AFL because of it. Losing Tom Harley, I agree, Tom Harley's position in his importance to the AFL is better, in my opinion, to be CEO of Sydney than it is in that role.
At the moment. That would not disqualify him from having the
That's
runway
not saying he's
to
not the
the
best
CEOs.
person for the job for it, but
No.
in terms of importance for the AFL, having a good CEO in Sydney is more important.
And the shorthand of what we're saying there is that Tom Harley's probably the best bloke for both roles.
Yep. But
Absolutely.
keep him in Sydney.
And to go on with your point, we at Adelaide Crows, sorry, I said we.
Yeah.
We lost our chair, coach, GM, CEO, and change of captain all within the space of about 2 years. And it's too much change for one club. And we saw what happened when Nixie came in. He didn't have that support around him that he needed at that time, and it took us too long to get back to the point we are.
Now, if Andrew Pridham, to your point, wanted to become the chair, he would have it lined up that he's got good enough people on his board to
Hasn't Andrew
step in.
Pridham upset a lot of people, though, in AFL world over COVID and what happened? And
Oh, yeah, but he's a hard businessman. That's what he does. He brings that to the
But
table.
what I'm saying, would the Victorian clubs be voting for Andrew Pridham to be there?
Some.
Yeah. I think it's pretty hard to find someone that's universally popular to be in that role. I think Greg Swan's universally popular, but he's in a role that's 3 deep. I mean, the chairman's so important. The chief operating officer, whether it's Amit Baines or Tom Harley, will come in with confidence, but being universally popular in that role is almost impossible, I think.
So let me go back to Greg Swan. Now, my understanding tonight is one of the first things he's going to do is bring back the Rules Committee and the rules of the game. And
are you going to be on it, Ed? You're on it last time.
You're on the Rules Committee,
I
aren't you?
think I'm still on it.
Fantastic.
Didn't tell me during COVID that I wasn't. But the other thing with Swanee, and I hired Swanee at Collingwood, so his introduction to football.
Sorry, why did you hire him?
I'll tell you why. He was actually the receiver during the Fitzroy, the death throes of Fitzroy was in there, but he was the guy who understood it from a football point of view. I actually caught him in the VFA playing centre-half back for Williamstown in those grand finals back in the day against Phil Cleary. He's a guy steeped in football. His father won an Order of Australia for services to football. He gets what it's all about. He is a really good bloke, and he'll get around, he'll meet people for lunch, he'll go to the races with them, he'll understand them, but he also understands from a footballer's point of view, but from a bean counter's point of view, from a chartered accountant from Ernst & Young, he understands the business of football. He helped us and me at Collingwood. He and I were side by side in turning around the club early on, getting the finances right. He was very close with Mick Malthouse. He's a wonderful... You have a look at what he does with Chris Fagan up there. He's had Daisy Thomas. He's had all number of players who've stayed at his house. The other thing is you get the daily double. You get his wife, Leonie. And don't laugh. She is as good a football person as you'll ever meet.
2 for the price of 1, Ed.
Yeah, 2 for 1. And that's... When I did that, I thought... You beauty, I've got 2 for 1 here. And so they did, all the players used to,
It's amazing you're so positive about him, because when he left to Carlton from Collingwood, you weren't as positive, were you?
When he left, I was going to hire a hitman, except most of them buried for Carlton.
I'm glad you didn't. You couldn't get one.
But no, we did. I was filthy because he was so important to me at that stage, and I felt it really keenly. And he's been able to get out of Carlton.
I don't think anyone said a bad word about him getting the job.
No, everyone.
So Eddie, will it be Tom Harley, yes or no?
I think at this particular moment, yes.
Yeah. But he hasn't said yes yet, and they haven't offered him anything formal yet.
No, it hasn't the formal. And my understanding from very good sources at the AFL is that it's still 2. It's Mate Baines, and Tom Harley. But Tom Harley says yes.
Quick question. I know we have to go to break.
Yeah.
The ex-CEO of Richmond, who's now running Tasmania,
Brendan
if this
Gale.
falls over,
No.
what?
Tassie falls over.
Well, we've just heard it.
It won't fall over that quick, will it?
Well, no, don't.
Timing won't work out, but he'll be fine no matter what.
Well, but having said that,
maybe Sydney.
Now this has all come together. If you get either Amit Baines, but probably Tom Harley into the AFL, and you've got Greg Swan in there, and you've got Laura Kane, who can now come through as well, and get this multifaceted business, because it is far too big. I've been saying for ages, their org structure doesn't work. It's actually too big at the moment.
Well, Swanee's going to do a review, isn't he, of that football department?
Yeah, but and I think the whole thing in general. And I think now they're getting into, as you said early on, that Andrew Dillon has taken control. Yeah. There's a lot to love about in football at the moment. There's a lot of things that we need to fix up, and there's going to be some battles.
I love that they've gone back to football.
Yep.
They want football to be the focus.
And that's it, exactly. We were going to talk about the drugs, but we'll do that another time.
I think we did that last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, but there was a bit of response and to and fro.
Was there?
Yeah, it was good.
Received well.
Oh, doesn't matter. It's good. That's what they've got to look at. When we come back, we're going to do a deep dive in Coach's Corner on the Sydney Swans. As Hurdy said, so important to the AFL competition. We'll see what's going on next. Yeah, straight to the point, Dean Cox. Time for Coach's Corner as we have a good look at the Sydney Swans.
25 minutes to make a name for yourself like you never made before.
Yes, thank you, Ed. We're looking at the Sydney Swans. They've won 9 out of the last 20, Rory. Pretty poor performance since they were top of the ladder in round 16 and won all those games last year, based on 5 of their best players playing out of their skin and fantastic ball movement that really cut the opposition in half last year. I want to look at 5 different things for the Swans and what Coxie can do to change them. I believe he's looked at their game plan at the end of last year as a coach and said, we're not going to win a premiership like this. We need to change. We need to get our contested ball back, get our defensive profile back and get our game back to one that's going to be competitive in deep finals. The first thing for me is players buying into defence. The biggest example of this is 2 of their stars, Chad Warner. Chad Warner, really fantastic player on offence, but at the moment, he's not helping the team in defence.
No, he's not. We're going to see some footage here. And he may be that dusty type role, but it still won't matter here. You'll see him coming to the top of frames. You've got Hinge here, Mitch Hinge, just jogs past him. You need your players to get up the ground, especially if you're a midfielder or a half forward. You have to be stopping that. That's what the Crows want. They want to launch off that half back line. And this is in the contest, Hurdy, where you saw him too.
Yep, and too easy to go through. You have to be able to attack and you have to be able to defend. The other player who's an example of them not defending well is Nick Blakey. Nick Blakey, everyone's saying he's playing too high, he's playing too deep, he's not defending, he's not getting enough of the ball. Nick Blakey needs to go back to beating a man and then attacking off the back of the man. He is a superstar player and they're not getting much out of him in attack or defence at the moment.
Well, and I thought Ben Keys did an absolute ripping job. And as you see, he's pushing over the contest. But if you go to a contest, you have to impact, you've got to tackle, you've got to pressure. But it's more his offence. I want to see him get involved in the offence, taking running bounces, Hurdy, cutting back through the corridor and hitting up those forwards. And we're not quite seeing that at the moment either.
Absolutely. The other one is better connecting going forward. The Sydney Swans last year with their offence was incredible. They moved the ball off the line, they moved it well, and they're hitting targets at small forward line. At the moment, they don't have that target down upfield, and they're kicking often into an extra number, but not kicking to their favoured side, not helping that forward connection.
No, they're jack kicks, and the personnel's not there. I mean, there's no Goulden, Parker, Armity, McDonald, Papley. They all played in the prelim last year, and they're without them at the moment. It looks like they're just trying to adjust, but those jack kicks aren't helping that group at the moment.
It's a great point. Last year they played 31 players. This year already they've played 31 players, so they are missing some players. The next win is this kick down the line. Last week they had 70 entries against Adelaide. They had 37 re-entries. That means 37 times the ball went out of their 50, it came straight back in. Brody Grundy has got to take his turn kicking down the line.
You're going to have to step out of the way and show where Brody Grundy is here. He's right over here. That's where you want Blakey. That's where you want Warner. Riley O'Brien's just here. This is where the Adelaide Crows want to force this ball from Sydney Swans, and guess who's going to take an uncontested mark down the line?
Brody Grundy is a fantastic player, but the Sydney Swans need him to get down the line, take some contested marks or bring it down to the ground.
He's 19th at the moment this year. So that means there's 2 players from one club beating him in that contested mark area.
Absolutely not good enough. The biggest one for me, though, is they have to improve their post-clearance ground balls, hard balls. What that means is after the contest, they're really good at contested ball inside the contest. Once the ball leaves the contest, their outnumbering is poor. They're not working hard enough to win the ball post-clearance in hard balls. One of the big determinants of top 8 success is post-clearance hard balls. The Swans are really poor at it.
And as you said, they're good around stoppages and that first effort, but it's the sharpness to get to the next one and the next one and outnumber there. Teams like Collingwood, Adelaide are doing it really well at the moment, and so are Western Bulldogs. So they've got to sharpen up, and that's what Coxie wants to get them good at, because they weren't great at that last year either.
Coxie's got his challenges, but the other one to me is where they find a key forward. I mean, if there's not one on their list, I believe they've got to go out and try and trade for one, because for too long they've been kicking the small forwards. They need someone to kick the ball down the line to or into the forward line too.
Who would you go for?
Who would I go for? You know what? I'd go for something a bit different. I'd be giving Joey Danaher a call, and I'd be saying, are you sick of holidaying? You're sick of not doing much? What are you doing? His father played for the Sydney Swans. His family's from the New South Wales area. Give Joey a call.
Do you know something, Hurdy?
I don't know anything, but I recruited. I was Joe's first coach. Fantastic guy, hard work ethic. He was a superstar last year. I don't know, $1.5 million. Would that be enough to turn him into a 2 or 3 year player?
What about Jamarra? We just saw him training.
I'd rather Joe Danaher than Jamarra.
Okay, what about one of the 2 boys from Carlton, Curnow and Mackay?
Oh, if Harry Mackay was there, or Charlie Curnow, I would definitely put my hand up and take them. But
would you take Tex Walker?
What? Take Tex Walker? Yeah, I mean, Tex is getting on. But Joe Danaher, when he left the game, was at the top of his power. He's a year off, freshened up. If he's keen, that's the first phone call I'd make.
He's been living there for the last year, I think, in Byron Bay.
That's it, Ed.
He knows something.
I
yet.
like it.
He knows something.
I like
I
it.
know.
Heard
I
he's
know.
got nothing
That's a
without
phone
knowing
call I'd
News
make.
breaker.
I know nothing. It's a phone call I'd make.
Mate, Hawthorn got Peter Hudson back and he kicked 100 goals after his knees. And
We'll send Joey a helicopter and fly him in like
Mate,
we did
absolutely.
with Peter.
Wow. That's something.
that's good. See, that's
Watch
little
Tommy
thing.
go research now.
Yeah,
Segment
Tommy,
3.
go research.
That's fantastic.
Well done, Hootie. Well done, Slaney.
Good stuff. Good stuff, boys. So just to underline it though, you believe that Dean Cox, that is reshaping the whole.
Absolutely.
And that they've believed after losing those 2 grand finals in 3 years that that's not going to ever win them. The game has moved on, so we have to actually go back a step to go forward.
Well, we're
Oh,
seeing,
yeah, I think exactly right. I think Coxie said, well, enough's enough. We've seen this style of play. I mean, teams had worked them out halfway through the year. You think about the GWS final when they're 37 points down and they came up to win. They got themselves a grand final. They didn't perform. I believe Dean Cox has looked at that game and said, we need to change our game style. And that doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And, good on him for taking up that challenge.
Good stuff. Rory, wonderful.
very good.
Great work, guys.
You must have loved that with Adelaide there for the whole segment.
Oh, it was very nice. We managed to squeeze him in above Collingwood.
And Tex
Who would've
Walker
thought
going to
we
the
got
Swans
there?
as well. Tex Walker. This one, jeez.
Exactly.